Okay guys, I don't know if I mentioned this previously or it's in another video that I'm yet to upload, but basically on the advice of my sister I'm going to start an Etsy store. Long story short, they specialise primarily in vintage stuff and stuff that I myself would generally not buy. A lot of it is basic things. There's furniture, there's stuff as simple as coat hangers, things to hang your keys on, stuff that really looks like it's made by Fairy Meadow Furniture Productions. You know, a lot of stuff that's salvage pallet wood and stuff like that. And a lot of it is really your upper middle class, trendy hipster sort of a market where they go for a lot of rustic stuff. And I have the ability to get stacks and stacks of lovely looking rustic timber, because I've literally got it all here and more, and some more over there, and about 20 something posts still down the paddock, and that's before we've replaced my father's fence. Yeah, as I said, industrial style looking stuff, rustic looking stuff, a hell of a lot of it is vintage stuff and handmade stuff, and generally speaking that's the only things it can be is vintage stuff and handmade stuff. But there's a tendency to also go for you know, the rustic look, recycled or salvaged as you might call it, but they like to call it upcycled, repurposed, and what's the other one, reclaimed stuff. So this is not a market I can ignore, and it's something that I probably should have done when I was back in Chinese Boss's vineyard. And you know, the stuff I'm looking at, I would never buy it myself, but the hipsters love it and they pay quite $1 for that sort of stuff, handmade, rustic stuff, and especially vintage stuff. And I've seen even hooks that are vintage hooks that could be used to turn into a coat hook sold for $20, and some of these things I have literally thrown in scrap metal. I'm kicking myself. Anyway, I have more than just that up my sleeve as my intentions this year. My sister's got an Etsy store, and she's had one for quite a while now and knows a lot of the tricks of the trade of how it runs and how to be seen and get stuff sold. And the startup costs are $20 for 3 months, to be honest. It is as cheap as anything to start up a store. So yeah, I'm likely to go down that path, but I have other fears and henceforth plans based on my expectations of the financial world in 2016, and I explain that in this video. Alrighty, I'm going to give you guys a simplified version of what I'm trying to achieve this year. Aside from fixing the house up, I'm probably not going to be doing a great deal of projects. I've got one that not projects just for the point of doing projects that are fandangle like the cardboard house, but I've got one that's pretty much 80% built already. So I probably should finish that. You'll see what that is. But as for the position the world seems to be in, don't be terribly surprised if there is suddenly, like a month after this whole thing going on in Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum, they're probably working on setting up a different worldwide monetary system. I'm not saying a global currency. What I'm saying is the 1919 interwar gold standards, the 1944 Bretton Woods Accord, the 1971 Nixon shock / Smithsonian agreement / petrodollar. And I think we's about actually technically overdue for another one. Every 30 to 40 years they have one of these. It's been 44 years since we've changed to the petrodollar, and it's about time that things have to change again, because it's all sort of getting to breaking point. You're likely to lose a lot of the value of your money in all of this. There's always a hell of a shake-up in all of this, unless you're in gold and silver. Anyways, if we have a bit of a failed start, or things don't quite work, or things get worse before they get better, look, let's face it, a lot of the supply chains of the world today, let's for instance, sugar. Now, I paid jack shit for this. I think it was about $2.80, was it, for 3 kilos? I have showed. No, it was about $2.40 for 3 kilos, which works out 6.6 pounds. You may think it's almost worthless, but that's in a current basis where the monetary system is working. There's a long chain that happens to make dirt cheap sugar in Australia. It involves no subsidies, if you want to know. What it involves is, right up north in the tropics, or subtropical at least, they grow sugar cane. The farmer brings it in. It will be a year before he is paid for that crop that he brings in. A year from when he delivers his cane to when he gets his money. In that, they got to go through a hell of a big shitstorm of a system, and then you finally get refined sugar. In fact, they had one of these big systems go kabang because they had this massive hopper. I don't know what the fuck happened, but the damn thing fell on its side, and everything came to a grinding halt for a while there, until they towed this thing up, fixed it out, dragged it all, stood it upright, re-welded all this thing, fixed it, and got it on the road again. But in that, it's not quite just that simple as a refinery that has employees to pay and farmers to pay. Then you've got to have transport, trucking. Then you've got to have shops buying this shit on credit. I saw credit freeze up during the GFC. I quit my job at the nursery to get a job, well, basically building battery hen joints. That job didn't last for very long because of the credit freeze up happened right about the same time as I have a spider up my shirt. As when I got my job. So I was only there for a few weeks. It was a ripper job, great pay otherwise. But honestly, it was a small company, had 2 different depots, employed 20, 25 people, and yeah. The guy who ran the whole show, he didn't even have a job himself in 6 months. In 6 months! From when I got the sack, the big boss himself was working for his cousins, who incidentally owned a battery hen place and still do own it. And that was all he could do, was go and work for his cousins. That was simply due to his clients' credit being frozen, his customers' credit being frozen. No fault on his part, or even his customers' part, to be quite honest. It was a fault in the international banking system. And, well, the interbank credit system. You get your humble sugar, and if there's an upset in the refinery's credit, there's one hitch. If there's an upset with them and their ability to pay their employees, there's another hitch. Or the farmer, there's another hitch. The transport company to pay its diesel bill, there's another hitch. The credit that shops use to buy sugar, there's another hitch. One hitch, and the whole system fucks up. And guess what? You just cannot get sugar anymore. But it doesn't just stop there. Sometimes people just run out of money, as they did in the Depression. And I have seen footage of a grocery store where you could go in and hand over products and barter shit out. And they would go to the farmers and they wouldn't give the farmer cash. They would often give them products. And people going in there with valve radios, shit. They were going in there with violins and working out a bit of it. During the ruble collapse of '93 in Russia, usually because everybody smokes like a friggin' chimney in Russia, they used to barter cigarettes. And often enough, no surprises, vodka. In fact, I talked on YouTube to a Russian who had, one of his family members had to get a tooth pulled out because it was in a pretty bad way. So they got this tooth pulled out and the dentist said, well, you got to friggin' pay me now. The negotiation they come to was 3 big jars of honey. That's how they paid the dentist. That's sort of a bit ironic, isn't it? Pulling out a bad tooth and paying a dentist in honey. But that's what they had to do, you know, and if things do get bad before they get worse, I am fucked if I am going to be on the bottom of the stack. I see people in the city, these yuppies and all that, what do they got to do? What can they do? They're going to be the guys going in with a flat screen TV trying to barter it for something. You know, because can they barter their labour when there's no jobs? Probably not. And if they do, and you're in a city of 200,000, 3 million, how much competition for labour is there going to be? Not much. See, if I earn 16,800, or anyone in this country earns 16,800 or less per year, they don't even have to lodge a tax form. I mean, they don't even have to hand one over. They just don't even have to fill it out at all. You just don't even put one in. Sort of designed to help the elderly, but it applies to everybody, all age groups who are in a taxable age range. So the average accountant ain't going to be really doing a great deal if nobody's earning any real dollars, are they? The fact is that I'm slightly going to be saved by having silver, but I don't really want to touch that. And of course, I'm on a property that has productive capabilities, if I make it have productive capabilities, and I shall take advantage of that. And I'm intending to not only start an Etsy store to maybe help the mortgage and whatever, sell a few fire pits, maybe a few wood heaters, hell, I might even sell a gasifier or two. I've got a design idea for being able to basically have a wood heater that's not inside your house, one that's outside on pavers, on a little bit of concrete, sitting on rocks, on your veranda if you've got a concrete veranda. I've even seen a design by someone who's spent 20 years in the fire brigade and also installs wood heaters, whereby he's got a fire pit literally, you got to set it up correctly, sitting on wood decking. I shit you not. And the way he's set it up is great, and it's not likely to ever cause any problems, and it hasn't so far in all the years it's been out there. But to be able to have a external wood heater and have one of those, sort of like your portable air conditioners, where you got the little thing you sit in the window with the exhaust vent that blows out, like that, but a piece of cement sheet that sits in your window, blows warm air in. And you're going to have a take-out pipe as well that comes in to suck the air through before it blows it back through that piece that sits in the window. I'm quite possibly going to make them docking stations that are these little fan dangles made out of wood that I'll probably make out of red gum posts, that are beautiful looking timber. If you've ever seen it, I've got quite a lot of it in the old posts here. For the yuppies, pink peppercorns, Peruvian pepper tree, in the States you may know it as Californian pepper tree. I'm sitting on quite a number. My parents are sitting on tons more than even I've got, and I can get literally bucketfuls of peppercorns. Literally bucketfuls. Sell those, you know, and probably start to create a network of people who I can sell, you know, real meat to for the purpose of cat food and maybe even their own consumption. And, you know, that's the thing. I want to do two things: be in food processing and give myself another option to barter with, which is setting up a big perpetual spinach / silver beet patch. All I got to do is get this. You guys will see it before long. It's an Onga pump, O-N-G-A, fantastic quality, commercial grade sort of pump. That runs on a Briggs & Stratton engine, which has got a bit of an issue that we believe is carburetor related. So either it needs a bloody good carburetor clean out, or a fuel filter's blocked or something like that, or fuel line's clogged, or I just got to buy another carburetor. And I'm going to go and get a bunch of IBCs, which last time I think they were $60 each, from a battery hen joint that puts a little thing up on its own notice board but doesn't really mention anything to the public. And they're building these things up and up, and they got a whole wall of the damn things, and they're trying to sell them, and they sort of aren't, because their own employees aren't interested in buying them. So I'm going to go and get a bunch of those from there, probably over 20 of them, and pump water into those during the winter. And then I've got water in the summer to pump a giant perpetual spinach patch. And basically, yeah, I'm going to have perpetual spinach and probably dehydrate it and maybe bag it up, and that'll be what I get to barter with. On top of that, put myself in a position to be able to process sheep into meat. Maybe even cows into meat. Hell, I've been butchering now for 21 years. I worked it out the other day. Shit you not, 21 years. And, well, I've butchered everything from rabbit, kangaroo, and sheep, and that's probably about it. But if I have the chance, pig, calf, maybe even cow, although I'm a little bit, don't feel terribly at ease around cows all the time, but if I set myself up a A-frame out of some of the steel I've got here, like weld together a proper one and set up an A-frame out there. We've got 2 hand-wound cranes my father's got over there. One he was given, another one my uncle owned. I think one of them's, I think my uncle's one's rated about 1.5 tons. You can lift up a cow or a calf or a big-ass pig on that. Butcher a pig with that, hanging up like that. We've got another one we use for sheep that's basically just a friggin' rope over the framing of the shed my dad's got that works alright, but you got to pull pretty hard, and that's only a damn sheep. But if you start doing calves and stuff like that, you've got to need to set up an A-frame. But go a little bit further than that. I have a number of options for grain mills. In fact, my mum's already got a stone grain mill. that alone could give me the capacity to make flour. I need to set up a network of people who who are willing to buy meat and flour and crap of that nature, and sort of further extend my small knowledge of local people, most of them whom my dad knows darn sight better than I do, who I can get that sort of gear off around here, as in, buy sheep directly from instead of butchering all my own. Buy some sheep off these guys, calves off these guys. There's a guy I used to work for who's probably retired now, so he'd be out of the picture, but he used to sell grain quite a lot. And there's other people, who I've worked on their properties for him, and other guys I sort of distantly related to and sort of know, and my father knows stacks of these guys, just about all of them, who I can get grain off and mill using a $3,000 mill I could buy that will literally bang out about 2 tonne per day. I shit you not, this bloody thing does, if you want super fine pizza style flour, I think 400 grams, which is probably around about a pound, maybe a little bit, just a touch under a pound a minute. And if you have it a bit coarser, you can do a kilo, which is 2.2 pounds a minute out of this thing. I mean, you can literally do a couple of tonne a day. It's a $3,000 grain mill. Plus, my mum's got one. And there's also another one that's around the $300 mark that has the option of also doing rolled oats, I think, or it might be another one. But it has the ability, it's got a belt set up, so you can actually set it up with a belt. And if I use a little engine like you'll see this eventually, the engine that my sister has, she's got a sewing machine that's a belt-driven sewing machine from the 60s, and there's like a little 92-watt motor on the back with a belt that goes to the main spinner of the sewing machine. 92 watts. And I believe I could do a similar thing with this $300. This is brand new, made in Germany stone mill, $300 stone mill. So that's another option. The other thing I'm looking at getting, $185 for just the canola press, but there's the same press with the olive oil press attachment. $215, and that allows you to make oil from all the canola they grew in it. Remember all that stuff I showed, all the yellow flowers, and I was talking about biodiesel, blah, 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 and I said you could probably eat the plant itself, which I believe you can, because the Chinese have got an edible version of it, and I don't see why this stuff, the leaves aren't edible anyway, because it is a brassica. All that seed, there's tons of it around here. But none of these farmers have got the ability to mill any of this grain, to extract the oil out of any of this these canola seeds. And I don't know how much of a capacity that a lot of these guys with the olive groves around here have got to press their own oil. I don't think many of them have got a capacity for that either. But I shit you not, for not much more than $300, I'll have the capacity. Not much more than $500, I'll have the capacity to make flour and olive oil and canola oil and power the whole lot off grid. And it mightn't be a large capacity unless I get the $3,000 one, then that is a friggin' large capacity. But it gives me a hell of a lot more to barter with, because now I can make local farmers get their stuff from raw product, grain in a silo, canola oil in, canola seeds in a silo, sheep run around the paddock too, meat on the barbecue, pancakes on your plate, and oil in your frying pan. And so I'm sort of looking to not only just hit it with the perpetual spinach, but also go down the path of processing food. And that will put me in a hell of a position, being able to not only process raw commodities into usable food products from local farmers for the local farmers, but also having a network of other people who I could sell this stuff to, or barter stuff from that these local farmers may want, or that I may want, or people who have got their own fruit trees. There's plenty of vineyards around here, and I am also have already concocted a bloody big plan to be able to convert grapes into, well, essentially fructose, into sugar. Yeah. Or at least a very, very rich syrup that is like, just about give you a sugar high if you have any. Like a, really, really rich sugary syrup, if not outright sugar itself. And I've also concocted a plan to be able to do that, which I may or may not follow through with as well. But I'm definitely going to get on the perpetual spinach and this oil pressing and this flour milling and these butchering capabilities, of which we have a lot of the butchering capabilities already. And I know of another. My parents have got a bandsaw. It's a proper meat bandsaw, but the bastard tends to break the odd blade or two. But there's an improvised way around that, and I am already with that equipment. I don't know about these little hand-wound mincers. I've got 3 of those. They may produce mince. I also have the ability to buy hand-wound mincers and mincers right up to the capacity of 800 to 900 kilos an hour. That's damn near a ton of mince an hour, although I don't really need that solid capacity. But, anyway, I'm just talking about the options that I'm going to have, not to be on the bottom of the stack if credit freezes up and products are hard to come by, or money itself sort of loses its entire point under a hyperinflationary circumstance, or just to barter with people who are, for all intensive purposes, damn near broke. And that's the position I want to get myself in before everything does go to hell in a handbag, if they don't save the system in time or save it as good as they had hoped to.